Hello and welcome to the review after the patch. So this is where I review the games after a big patch and tell you how the game is progressing and whether it's worth it or not. So today let's take a look into Borderlands 4, which I might say is an interesting game to review. Warning, spoilers. So for the story, Borderlands takes off right after the main story of Borderlands 3, with the moon Elpis being teleported by Lilith arriving at the planet Kairos. The planet is ruled by the so-called Protector, the Timekeeper, which basically plants a chip in everybody's necks to control them.
I take that personally.
And who are you?
My name is Mayus. The ones who gave it to me called me Timekeeper.
So the story is basically a steampunk Fast and Furious where you have to go and kill the Timekeeper's generals in different locations and get access to face him and defeat him. Honestly, I didn't find the Timekeeper that menacing compared to the things that his general does, but at least he has a motive of self-interest in the end. I'm happy that certain characters like Lilith are back and makes the cliffhanger main story more suspenseful, but the journey to get that point in the game feels like a filler arc in a Naruto anime. Now let's talk about graphics, which I feel only had a minor improvement in the shell-shaded art style. Changing the graphics mostly increases how things render and the amount of foliage density in the game is displayed. Surprisingly, there's no ray tracing in this game currently, but there is frame generation for your FPS. Audio-wise, there is a bug where certain audio goes missing, but that was surprisingly fixed in the latest big patch, luckily. And the best thing about the game is the voice acting and script, which I feel makes the game easier to go through. The classic Borderlands humor stays intact and some jokes might land flat, but the slapstick humor is overall great. Gameplay in Borderlands 4 is true to the series' crazy looter-shooter formula. There are inclusion of more movements like the jetpack and also a grapple which has limited uses in the latter but does make the gameplay more fast-paced. The biggest change to the gameplay is the open world areas. To help with that, you can now summon your vehicle anywhere outside in the open world, but the vehicle feels a little lackluster. The vehicle design looks very generic and now it can't even fetch your co-op buddy. On top of that, it is equipped with a weak arsenal that barely tickles the enemy.
Damaging the ride? That's downright unsporting!
Now on to the weapon side. Guns. There are so many gun rolls, but only a few manufacturers are actually useful. The most wanted is obviously Jacobs, with prioritized critical damage, and some useless ones like Ripper, which just adds a delay before you can actually able to fire, which to be honest feels like a penalty more than advantage. There are enough variety of enemies so that each encounter feels unique, with different factions even fighting each other in the open world, which is a plus. You can now find dome-like areas in the open world which houses bosses, which should drop greater loot, but you have better luck killing bosses in a single area using the new Moxie on-call mechanic instead of wasting your time hunting down these domes. The dome also feels poorly implemented with the boss despawning right in front of you instantly if you exit the dome area by mistake, or being pushed out by an enemy or a grenade explosion. Somehow it just feels like they wanted to add something new to the game since it's now open world. Now on to the bad side. The game in its core is great, but when you try to do everything else, it's just a great hassle. The game UI is a piece of work, and I don't mean that in a good way. First, let's talk about the inventory filter where it's just straight out doesn't work. Before the patch, I could not sort stuff up using the DPS option because the menu kept disappearing on me. And now, after the patch, not only is the same issue not fixed, but certain filters do not work, like filtering gear with firmware. Also, I'm not sure who's in charge of the inventory, but holy crap, it is a mess. The game somehow takes forever to render your inventory with 3D models of the gear and has icon placeholders before the rendering completes. It feels like the game is rendering a 8K resolution of each weapon every time you enter the inventory. Mind you, the render image is as small as the YouTube video cover image. Not sure who thought it was a great idea to render a 3D model for your whole inventory. Honestly, I prefer the icon placeholder because at least I can see what mods for each characters are without needing to highlight them. Also, some legendary mods do not show what they actually do, which is mind-boggling how this even passed quality control. One weird thing that they note in the new patch notes is how the new radar now shows legendary drops. But this feature seems to be non-existent in the latest patch. I'm not sure who writes the patch notes, but I think he's about to get fired for that. Talking about the latest patch did bring the Halloween event, but honestly, it's just a big letdown, as you can see everywhere on YouTube. Sure, you can get free skins with a code which they share using their social media instead of gameplay, and their Halloween themes gear, but they are barely usable because of their horrible damage. The event has you facing bosses in the dome-like bubble again in the open world, but instead they just changed the sky to be a little spooky red, so there's a little Halloween theme to it. In the beginning, I was thinking of giving Borderlands 4 an 8 out of 10 because I believe that the small UI issue will slowly be fixed with all the upcoming patches. But after what happened with their so-called big patch, I'm now giving it a 7 because not only has the game gotten somewhat worse, but they could not even bother to even do what they stated in their own patch note, which I feel truly portray how messed up the development team is. With all that said, luckily the game is still fun at its core, and with the limited amount of looter shooter games like Destiny, Warframe, Outriders, Suicide Squad, but we don't talk about the last one, Borderlands 4 easily feels like one of the better ones currently in the market. If you managed to watch until this far, thanks for watching, and if you like this content, please help leave a like and subscribe. Bye!